Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Kevin, and I'm from Worldview Education. So, for the last 10 years, Worldview, we've been working towards curating powerful and insightful learning experiences across the globe for you, Generation Z. And the Harvard Model United Nations, or HMUN, is an initiative of the Harvard University's IRC, or the International Relations Council. The conference series is about 67 years old and engages over 6,000 students every year across its three conferences in the United States, in China, and in India. This June, though, Worldview and Harvard University's IRC, we were scheduled to host the first edition of HMUN in Dubai. However, due to the unfortunate, the global pandemic, we weren't able to host the conference this year. But we decided that, global lockdown shouldn't stop you, the Generation Z, from having a platform to debate and discuss, the pressing problems of the world. So today, the need to be a global citizen is being challenged more than ever before. And so Harvard IRC and Worldview, we're pleased to present a special online edition of HMUN Dubai that we're going to host from the 11th to the 15th of June 2020. And we really hope, that this conference provides you a platform to continue to discuss and debate the many challenges we face as a world today. And so, as a run-up to the conference, we thought it would be a great idea to address some of the questions that you might have regarding your academic future. And who better to answer those questions than people who've had over 25 years of experience in that very space. And we're very pleased to announce HMUN Dubai's association with Ivy Central this year, an organization that specializes in placing students in top universities in the United States, the UK, and Canada. And today we have Caroline and Jose. Thank you so much for coming on. Two of the most experienced and successful college counselors in the world, whose team has helped students worldwide, to gain admissions into each of the 8 Ivy League schools. For over 2 decades, they've been helping students develop unique and outstanding profiles. And we're very happy to have them with us. And both of you, we'd like to pick your brains on how each of the students here who's watching can make the most out of their Model UN experiences. Over to you both.
Jose and Thank you so much, Kevin. Hi, I'm Jose Kumar.
And I'm Caroline Linga.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the big reason why we've worked with HMUN and also we worked with Ivy League MUN for a long time is because so many of our students over the last 20 years have absolutely loved getting involved with MUN. But often by grade 11, parents are saying, well, he or she does not want to go and do a political science degree. So how is this going to help? So one of the reasons we're here today is to help you understand, your parents understand, how taking part does help and will help your application, and what extra things you can do to take HMUN and every MUN you do forward and to make it into something that makes you stand out as an applicant to college.
And I think the most important point there is there are so many people that do MUNs across the world. So how do you make that into an application element that makes you stand out? I think that's something that we will try to discuss. We have some guest participants as well who will join later on, who will talk to you about how it helped them get into the type of universities that they got into and which they're attending right now. So we're going to talk about that as well. I think tomorrow, we're going to have a group of our colleagues, Martin and Claudia, who are going to be talking to you about how the COVID issue is the crisis across the world is actually impacting the individuals across the world and the colleges and universities. And they're going to be joined by 3 panelists from 3 different universities. That's going to be University of California, San Diego, Trinity College, and University of Rochester. And they're going to talk to you about what they are doing to make sure that they have a safe environment for every person that they're going to be bringing back to campus, if they do bring them back to campus this year, or what are the contingencies in terms of how they're going to make things work and what it means for students in the future. They're going to maybe bring up the question of whether SATs or ACTs will still be required for students for next year when they apply, or even for this year. And that's something that I think a lot of you would want to also find out more about.
Definitely. It's very much a watch this space at the moment. Every single day, more universities and colleges are saying for this year's class, we won't require that. But how many more are going to say it? That's the biggie, because if you're applying to, say, 13 schools, which tends to be the norm, if, say, 9 of your schools don't require the SAT, but 3 does, then that's a problem area. So I'm kind of hoping everybody will go to that optional this year.
And obviously, we're going to try to cover today what our students do and how they become the standout candidates that get them into some of the top elite universities across the world, whether it's the UK or the US. So that is an area that we will also discuss. Now, one of the key things about MUN is it builds a lot of transferable skills. And that is something that will make each individual kind of learn things as they go along. We love MUNs, by the way. So most of our students will participate in one or the other MUN in India or abroad. They sometimes do international MUNs as well, going into the US and doing all the US circuit as well. And I think it makes them a lot more confident in the way they present themselves. It makes them a lot more able to do things like research, which is, I think, a very important element of what universities are looking for. Caroline, what do you think in terms of what is the single most thing that MUN gives to the students that allows them to get into a university or college like the Ivy Leagues, for example?
I would say there are a few sides to it. When you are taking part in MUN, if you win a lot, then obviously that allows you to show on your application form that I have stood out from the crowd, which is great, but that's just one way of doing it. If you're doing MUN so much and you're getting so experienced at it that you're invited to be the director of an MUN or the chair of an MUN, or even the organizer for your school MUN, you're showing you're way more than just communications. You're showing organizational skills, you're showing leadership skills, you're showing motivation skills, you're showing you have the ability to lead your peers, which is a really, really big deal. But quite apart from all that, there are transferable skills that everybody gets from taking part. And one of the questions I saw that came in over the last couple of days is, everyone says it's the experience that matters, and it is the experience that matters. But what if I don't win things? How do I use this? How do I set this out in my profile when I'm applying to college to make it a key part of my application? And it's about the transferable skills. Jyoti has mentioned that obviously research is a big transferable skill, and most of my students who do any level of MUN, whether they're doing 5 a year, 10 a year, or 1 every 2 years, they really do get into research. They get the research bug. Once they started looking into international relations and current affairs in this way, they get into a position where they're more happy to go away and put together research papers. And one of the big secrets of college admissions that people don't tell you on a day-to-day basis is that the top schools are looking for extracurricular academics. And the easiest way to do that is to show them your passion in your chosen areas of study. Say your chosen area of study is physics, for example, and you're doing MUNs, but you've learned through MUNs how to do research. So you can take that and you can do research into an area of physics, and you can put together a paper and you can put it on Amazon and you can link that up for your university application. And it shows them, wow, this is a student who's actually got a passion for this subject that takes them way beyond the classroom. And that is huge. Passion for the subject, which takes you beyond the classroom for the top schools in the US especially, is a really, really, really big deal. But obviously there are loads of other, I would say, transferable skills from MUN. As I alluded to a minute ago, if you are doing it, the young lady who's going to speak to you in a while, Anusha, by the time she'd gotten to sort of grade 11, she was already leading MUNs as the chair. And that gives you obviously brilliant practice in communication skills, brilliant practice in organizational skills, brilliant practice in leadership skills. And there isn't a university on the planet, and well, I would say the planet, perhaps that's not true. The UK schools aren't as bothered. US schools, all of them, they're looking for young student leaders who are going to go in there on their campuses and initiate activities and lead those activities and events. And that is a really, really, really big deal that you get out of participation in MUN, whether you go more into the just trying to win, or you go just for the experience and you take the transferable skills and you apply it to your academics, or you decide, okay, I'm going to get to the top of MUN and I'm going to be the chair and things like that. All of those ways win in terms of getting into college. Other areas, other transferable skills from MUN for me, really, really important one is problem solving. Analytical thought and problem solving, they kind of go hand in hand in my mind. And there isn't any top school in the United States that isn't looking for students who are looking at the world around them and their society, and especially their immediate community, their school community and the community in which they live. And they're looking at ways they can change things to make life better or easier for populations in need. And honestly, when you've gone through a few MUNs and you've gotten used to grappling with massive problems that you have to figure out ways of solving through creative thought and analytical thought, you are in the best possible position to put together programs that can change the lives of people in your real life back home. Because everybody's got, there's no community on earth where everybody is happy and everyone's content and everyone's doing great. Even if you're living in the most expensive gated community on the planet, there are still going to be people who come into that gated community and work, and they need help too. So it doesn't matter where you're living or what you're doing, it's the skills that you gain from the MUN in terms of problem solving that would enable you to put together social programs of change that will change lives, maybe even save lives. And that is a massive, massive uptick on your college application today, because in the last sort of 15 years, the top 20 schools in the US have been absolutely obsessed by students that use their problem solving capacity to change other people's lives for the better. So that's something you can really do, because on the MUN, when you're doing it, you are trying to change people's lives for the better, but you're doing it in a kind of way where it's like we're practicing for the future. But you don't have to limit it to practicing for the future. You can actually apply it now. You can go out into your community, you can look at what problems there are in the community local to you, and you can think, okay, I'm going to figure a way to solve this. I'm going to figure a solution. And it could be a tiny one that makes a huge difference, or it can be a huge one that makes a tiny difference. It doesn't matter. It's the actions that you take to do it that matter. And honestly, from especially the last 15 years of working mainly with my students in India, because that's our hub really, because we've been living in Bangalore a long time. And for us, my students there love MUN. But they were all mostly, and especially 15 years ago, they all wanted to go into engineering and business and mainly math and science. That's changed a bit today, but it was like that 15 years ago. And so they started to realize from MUN that they could take that whole problem solving, bring it into, say, computer science or engineering, and look at ways that they could take computer science, for example. They were looking at ways in which they could produce apps that can change people's lives, ways they could write algorithms that could make people healthier or happier. So there are so many transferable skills from this activity. And I don't feel, schools probably don't give it enough priority, in my opinion, because the very basic skill you get from it is the ability to communicate effectively and get your point across and get your message out there. Your public speaking becomes brilliant. And once you've got a grasp on public speaking, you can change lives just through public speaking. Look at Tony Robbins. He's made a career out of that. You can change lives through public speaking. So it's well worth, when you're at the MUNs, every single MUN that you do for the next couple of years, think about, okay, so I'm exercising this skill and that skill. When you get home, don't stop. Just start thinking, okay, these are transferable skills.
How do you apply it?
How do I apply those in my life, in my community, so it makes a difference to my college application above and beyond if I win Best Delegate?
Mm-hmm. One of the things that we constantly get asked, and I think there's some questions coming through as well. By the way, everybody, there's a Q&A tab.
Yeah.
If you have any questions that you would like us to answer live on this webinar, please just type in the question and we'll certainly try to do that. I think I've already received 13 questions there, which we'll try to cover as much as we can after the initial discussion points. So just do that. And any person who wants to join our webinar series can go to ivycentral.com/HMUN, and they'll be able to register there, and we'll send you information about future webinars that we're running, and you'll be able to participate in those as well.
We do webinars pretty often because it's a great way of reaching out to students that don't work with us and helping other people. That's really important.
Yeah. So one of the things that we wanted to do today is invite one of our students who is, I would say, very accomplished. And we have known her right from grade 8 onwards when we first met her, and we saw her, I think, the next week after meeting her in one of the Ivy League MUNs in India, which is taking place in New Delhi. I still remember her and her sister coming there. So I would like to invite maybe Anusha Sarathi, who is a student at Yale University in the US, who is an MUN enthusiast, and she still does them, I'm sure, and she actually loves MUNs completely. Anusha, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
We're all in lockdown together, so it's okay.
Indeed.
All right, Anusha, maybe I have a couple of questions for you. I think one of the key things that we want to, and of course, Anusha obviously focuses on global affairs, so this is one of her areas of topics that she's studying. She might change her mind, but I think as far as I know, she's still in it. She studied at TISB, so the International School Bangalore, and she is also one of our student advisors, so she actually works with Ivy Central as well. But she is ideally the person who will talk about maybe her own experience at MUN. And if you have any questions that you want Anusha to answer, please put it in the Q&A as well. We'll certainly try to capture those as we go along. Anusha, one of my first questions, what have you learned from your experience and involvement from the MUN overall?
Yeah, so I think that's a really great question. I think I've learned 3 things overall, all 3 of which you've already discussed, but I'll try to give more of like a personal take on it. I've learned a lot about research, speaking, and organization. So I'll speak about them individually. I've learned a lot about research because I think to win and to participate in Model UN, you have to do a lot of research in a specific agenda or a specific area. It's very solutions-based research, which I find incredibly critical in this like current juncture of world politics. And I think that Model UN has definitely helped my research papers. I continue to do research in college and did it throughout high school as well. So I think that it's definitely influenced them by making them more solutions oriented, which is kind of the goal. I would also say that it helped my speaking skills. I remember the first time I raised my placard in grade 9 and I had no idea what I was saying. I was 14 years old and had never been to a Model UN, had never even been to a practice Model UN. And I was stuttering, I didn't know what I was talking about. Cutting to 4 years later when I was Director General of my school's MUN. So I did 4 years of Model UN in high school. I continue to do Model UN in college, but I would say it's definitely exponentially increased my speaking abilities, considering that I can now speak publicly, which I could not do 5 years ago. And then I would say organization, because I think that there's a lot of different ways to get involved with Model UN. You don't necessarily have to be a delegate. You can also be an organizer or a chair. And I think in all of those aspects, organization is really important, and just knowing the things that you want to talk about, the things you want to bring up, and knowing how to plan a conference, which are all really important skills.
That's really great. Anusha, one of my other questions that I had was, what do you think are the less obvious transferable skills that you've gained from your involvement? So what do you think those are? The less obvious, not the main ones.
Yeah, well, I think it's like a main one that's like really under discussed, I think, is just talking to people who disagree with you and involving people's perspectives when they think you're wrong and when you think they're wrong. And it's difficult to do, and there's not a lot of instances in your like teenage life where someone will come up to you and be like, I think your view on nuclear weapons in the Middle East is wrong. And it's like it's not you don't get a lot of opportunities to do that, and I think that as you learn how to deal with opinions that are not your own and deal with opinions that are perhaps on polar opposites of you, you learn how to incorporate them and to build a better solution. And I'm such a strong believer that it takes multiple people to come up with comprehensive policies for global issues, and I think it's like a great way to like learn that skill, which I don't think you have that many other opportunities to learn.
That's really good. Has participation in MUN helped you at Yale in any way?
Yeah, so yes, it has. And honestly, the impact of it is probably like unimaginable and cannot be calculated just because of all of those transferable skills. I would say it's definitely made me a more confident person. It's allowed me to present myself in the way I want to be presented and the way I want to be viewed. I still work on Model UN with the Yale International Relations Association. I'm planning a Model UN with Yale, and I'm chairing for Yale, which is exciting, and are all skills that I learned in the high school circuit that I will hopefully bring to the college circuit. But I think above all, it's like allowed me to talk to people from different backgrounds and different views, and to have intellectual conversations in which both of us learn from and both of us don't necessarily need to agree on.
That's great. Thank you so much. There's a couple of questions that have come up, which is specifically, I think maybe you could answer. How many MUNs should a delegate do to be called experienced?
Oh my God.
This is from Purvi Rao.
That's a great question. I don't think there's like a number. I think that doing whatever you feel comfortable doing, whatever works for you and your schedule is great. I did maybe 15 a year when I was really active, but that is not, that's not something you need to do. It was a big part of my portfolio, but it doesn't need to be a big part of yours.
Good. Okay, can Anusha mention how she described MUN in her application? I remember actually working with you on that, and and you had described it in a very. I should pull up the application actually and see exactly how you wrote it. How do you describe it in your applications?
That's a great question that I think that you guys could maybe speak to more than me, but I can try. I think I talked about how it just impacted me as a person, and how the Bangalore circuit in specifics taught me a lot about life and about growing up, and it helped me grow up a little. I don't think I talked about it as much in terms of accolades or achievements, but rather just how it impacted me and how I grew from it as a person and as a leader.
So I have Aryan. Well. Yes, and Aryan has asked a question, which is also, I would say, does MUN change the way people view you?
Well, yes, but I think that it also changes the way that you view yourself. I think I can speak to my experience, but I've also spoken to a lot of other people who do MUN, and a lot of my friends did MUN in high school, and I think it, like, you view yourself more of like an agent of change, and you view yourself as a person who has impact. And when you're 15 or 16 years old, I cannot really remember another avenue in my life in which I thought I had impact in. And I think that's really important, because I think as like future leaders, it's important for us to feel heard and to debate issues that matter.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people, and this, I think a few of the questions are related to that, which is a lot of people say, well, how do I basically prove that I've done really well in my MUN career circuit, you know, over the 4 years of high schooling? And then how do colleges know that I've done well? So if I'm a best delegate, or I'm a secretary general of one of my conferences, or I've chaired something, or I've done exceptionally well by participating and doing really well. There's no proof on how that happens, but there is. The best way to do that for everybody is to make sure that your school counselor knows everything about that, right? So if you don't tell your school counselor, who's going to be writing a recommendation for you, about the tons of MUNs you've been participating in, and how well you did in it, I think you're losing out the benefit of what the counselor can do for you. If you just tell the person that I am part of the MUN club, or I participate in conferences, but do not go into the extent of telling your counselor at your school in terms of how to then present that information in their recommendations, you've lost that opportunity. That's one of the key ways of demonstrating the fact that if the counselor believes you are one of the best MUNers in your school, and that the fact that you've done a lot of MUNs and gained and honed those skills, that is the way you need to perhaps show the evidence. Tell them about the ones you have won. Show the certifications you have received from them. You can't send those to colleges. Colleges don't want necessarily you to send an image of your certificates, and they obviously don't want that, because they don't have the time and the ability to process all that. But they do look at what your counselors say about you.
They do.
So if you talk to your counselor about it after every conference that you've had, or send them an email saying, I just wanted to let you know I did the Harvard MUN and I was one of the best delegates there, and this is the certificate to prove that I've done that, they're more likely to include that. And they're going to show your passion about letting them know as well. So they'll get to know you a lot more. Counselors play, I would say, one of the most critical and important role in getting you into college. And these are the high school counselors, right? you need to make sure that they're well aware of what you're doing in the MUN circuit. If you don't do that, unfortunately, they will just not represent it, because it's something that is, for a lot of people, it's an afterthought. That guy also does, or that girl also does MUN, but they don't actually go into the depth of basically reflecting that in the recommendations. Make sure they reflect.
I would also, for your counselor's recommendations, when you start talking to the counselor in 11th grade, talk them through the transferable skills that you've gotten from MUN, and also be really specific about how you've used those skills and how you've used that experience to build your profile back home and to change lives. That's the key thing.
One of the questions from Mr. Bose, or Tanusri Bose, Miss Bose, I think, is winning an award more important than gaining experience in an MUN? What do you think, Anusha? Did you win awards each and every MUN you went to?
Well, I think that a lot of people walk into MUN thinking like the only reason I'm going to do this is to get Bestel or like outstanding or honorable or whatever, and then I'm just going to leave. I think that's an attitude that doesn't allow for personal growth, because you don't recognize that you may be doing this for personal growth. And I think it's much better to walk in with the attitude of, I'm really excited over the next 3 days. I'm going to become much more confident, and I'm going to use these skills when I walk into a classroom next week, or when I have to give a presentation next week. And then if I win, that's okay. That's also fine, but it's not like the goal, as opposed to being like, if I don't win, then I have learned nothing and I will never do this again. So yeah, that's what I think about that.
That's a very good answer. Thank you so much. One question which is very important, and maybe Anusha, you can take that as well, is from Vedic Vaja. What is the right age to do MUN?
Yeah, that's a great question. So honestly, a lot of MUNs do have minimum age limits. So definitely whatever they say. I started at 14 when I was in the beginning of grade 9. I know some people who started earlier. I know some people who started much later. I think it's whatever you feel comfortable doing, whatever your parents feel comfortable doing. It's so individual.
Okay.
And I think everyone matures at different rates and develops confidence at different rates. But one thing I would say about MUN, that I really noticed in Bangalore in my student group there, is that a lot of people who started out not at all confident, once they got used to MUN, they were really confident kids that changed them completely. And I think that's wonderful.
Do you think, Anusha, did MUN help you in your education system? So doing an IB education, was MUN helpful in helping you in doing history or any of the other subjects in school?
Yeah, so I did the IGCSE and then the IB. I would say it helped in both. I could not take politics or international relations as subjects in my school. It wasn't offered. So I kind of used this as like a subject of sorts, and learned more about global politics and world politics, which is something that I'm pursuing in college. So something I'm very interested in. And yeah, so I'd say it definitely enriched my education system, as it gave me something different to do and something like a subject to learn that I wasn't taking in school. And then also all of those transferable skills we spoke about in the IB. I did a lot of presentations, like you have to do a lot of presentations, and it helped like in confidence with like speaking abilities there, and in research when it came to internal assessments or IAs, and extended essays and all that fun stuff.
Nisha, I remember, I think MUN, you were passionate about it. You treated it as one of your main activities. In terms of all the things you did in high school, where would you put MUN in terms of whether it was your first main activity or second or third? Where would you put it?
Yeah, I would definitely say it would be either like first or second. I think it was a really big part of my life. I did for all 4 years of high school. I think that I also had leadership positions. I was the MUN prefect in high school in grade 12. So I think that it definitely helped in terms of something that I did with school and also outside of school. So yeah, definitely first or second.
Somebody has just asked, they've won a lot of MUNs and they've been the director general and things like that. And they're saying, would it help if I now did things like coaching younger students? And I remember you were doing some of that with your younger body at TISB. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, of course. So when I was in grade 12, I was running my school's MUN club. as MUN prefect, and I was coaching my juniors or my younger grades, and I thought that was really, really fulfilling because we would have like internal model UNs with just like in our school, which I thought was really enriching. And I think that our school's model UN club changed a lot in the years that I was there, because my first model UN conference, I knew exactly zero. I did not know what a resolution was. I didn't even really know what like a moderated caucus was. I was kind of just there. I think the only words I said was to like break for lunch. And even that, I think I messed up. But through like the programs instated before me and also like by me, I think that delegates from our school walked into Model UN conferences for the first time, but like knowing key terms, knowing words, knowing how to speak. My little brother is currently a part of the MUN club. He is going into grade 9, and he has done the internal Model UN, has really learned a lot from it, and is really excited to go to his first real conference. So.
Yeah, our daughter is going to join MUN this year. So she's in 8th grade going into 9th grade, and we think it's going to be really interesting for her. She likes speaking a lot, so I think that'll be really useful as well. Yes. So we have another question. I think it's for everybody. Yarid Karim, is the location of the MUN important? Like, is one MUN more significant than the other? Caroline, do you want to take that?
I mean, I personally do not really think so, because I feel as though the biggest, most important thing about MUN is not what you win, it's what you take away. It's the transferable skills that you take into your everyday life and that you use to change that everyday life and the everyday life with the people around you in your community. I don't know, Anusha, do you think it matters where they go for MUN?
No, I think that all MUNs are created equal. It just depends on what you bring to it and take away from it. I think there are big names. HMUN is a big name. ILMUNC or Ivy League Model United Nations is a big name. But I don't think it's like super necessary to win at those conferences or to even go to those conferences. It really just matters how passionate you are about the conferences that you do attend and organize and chair.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. You know, one thing that I would add there is, you know, for everybody who is currently, you know, due to the COVID crisis that's going on, they won't be able to do a lot of things outside their home environment. I think joining the online Harvard MUN, you know, which has just been announced, would be actually exceptional and would be something fantastic, because not only will you continue to do the skill building and participating in things, but it shows that the fact that regardless of the fact that you've been locked down, that you are able to still participate in all of these conferences that are taking place. Doing online conferences at this stage is probably your best bet to showcase to universities later on that the fact that regardless of the fact that you were trapped in a situation where you had no control, that you were still reaching out to every opportunity that you could get so that you could expand your skills even when you were at home. And so joining a Harvard MUN, for example, over the course of this June, when they have the organization, the conference going on, I think that'll be something significant and very important for universities. Every university at this stage is going to look at how you use this time. So I think using it in the most productive way is going to only help you.
It's going to make you stand out, because you are going to be called the COVID generation. However much we dislike that term, it's going to happen. And the universities at the top are going to divide you into two groups: the group that made the most of the downtime, and the group that, like my son, just played computer games through the downtime. So there are, you know, they're definitely going to see a difference, and they're definitely going, there's a lot of opportunity through things like online MUN for you to stand out right now, for you to show, I didn't stop. I didn't just give up on life because it's depressing to be trapped at home. I made my time count. That's going to be really, really important.
All right, I think we're already past 1 o'clock. Kevin, how are we doing on time?
Yeah, we have about 5 more minutes to take a couple more minutes.
Okay. All right. So let me do that. This is an interesting question, Anusha. You can certainly answer that. Did doing the IB load allow you time to do enough MUNs? And I know it did.
We know it did, but yeah.
Yeah. So look, the IB is like, it's a tidal wave, and it's interesting time. It was an interesting time in my life where priorities were established, and it's a challenging it's a challenging program, as I'm sure a lot of state curriculums are also very challenging. And I think it's just about like prioritizing things that make you happy along with studying hard for the IB. Luckily, I had a lot of support from my school to go to Model UNs, and I think that was definitely a great thing for me. But yeah, it's hard, but it is indeed possible to do things in the IB apart from the IB.
Thank God. Otherwise, life would get grim.
We have a question from Sanjana Gupta. She says, "Can we do MUNs in college?"
Yeah. I think it depends where you are. It's pretty big in the US. There's like a pretty big college circuit. And I think it's pretty big in Bangalore as well. But yeah, it just depends on where you are.
And Sanjana, I would say that to you, if your college doesn't have MUN, I think you'll be the first person to basically saying, I will start it up at my college.
You can launch it, can't you?
You can launch it, and you can make other people interested in it, and then they can start competing with other colleges in that way, and gaining skills throughout the college years. Absolutely.
Yeah, sorry to butt in. We had another question coming from another platform. He says, you know, a lot of kids already have Model UN on their profiles, but how does an individual build a story around their Model UN experience to stand out and to make it different?
Caroline?
The key is the transferable skills. It's what you do with them. You know, if you come home from MUN and you're feeling all kind of enthused to make a difference in your community locally, and you look around you and you see what needs helping, and you go out there and you launch an initiative, a social outreach initiative perhaps, to help people or to improve something, or to build an app which allows children to be tested for dyslexia in villages in India, for an example. There are so many things you can do. You know, MUN does help your application, full stop. And it helps you grow as a person. And that, for me, probably is the most important thing. But the skills you learn through it, they can change other people's lives. And that, for the very top colleges, is what they're looking to see. How did you take that skill set of being able to solve problems and change lives into reality and make it happen?
There's a question from Anvesha Desai. This is my first MUN too. So is there anything important that I should keep in mind? Anusha, since you should give her your broad experience of knowing how a first MUNer should make everything important there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it's just important to breathe and do the best you can, and just know that you will be doing better. And it's really very much an upward trajectory. I think the thing that I would tell myself if I were to go back in time, and tell myself something, I think I would just tell myself to like relax and just to like let this carry me, because it truly is an activity that changed my life, and I think to a large degree got me to Yale. And yeah, I think it's something that I wish I hadn't like fought as much, because after my first Model UN, I was like, oh, I'm never doing this again.
I can vouch for that. She definitely said she was never doing it again.
She actually did say that. She came from the event and said, I'm never doing that again.
And then 12 months on, she'd done about 15 more. She was okay by then. So
yeah.
I think so. That I think probably is one of the last questions we're going to answer today. Obviously, if you would like to talk to us more about MUNs and other things that impact college life, please feel free to contact us. Our website is ivcentral.com. You are welcome to register for our webinar series, so in which I'm sure Anusha will also join at some point in time, and she can answer maybe 1,000 more questions about MUN, and we'll certainly keep track of all the questions that you guys have sent in, and try to find a way to get you those answers as much as we can. I'll type in the website, so in case you need to sign up for the webinar series, you can do that. It's very simple, ivcentral.com/HMUN. And we certainly hope that you're going to have a great HMUN going forward.
Definitely.
And a fantastic journey through the Model United Nations world. I think it's a fantastic thing that universities love to see. And Anusha benefited from it. And I can say maybe about 50 to 60% of the students that we work with participate in the MUN circuit throughout the world. And it does help them become confident. It helps them become very good at the way they present things, the speech, and
the problem solving, the confidence, the research.
The problem solving is one of the most key elements, obviously, because that problem solving skill that they've gained in one place helps them in finding solutions to lots of things that universities would love to see. And obviously, I think it's a skill set you're gaining for your lifetime. It's not just for getting into college.
Absolutely.
So it's something that we definitely promote, and that's why we are part of this program as well.
Yes.
We have worked with all Harvard MUN and Ivy League MUN for a very long time, and we continue to support them as much as we can.
Definitely. MUN is a fantastic thing to do in and of itself, but it's also a catalyst to change who you are and to change what you can do when you go back home again. And that can really impress any university, no matter who they are.
Anusha, I would like to thank you so much for joining us today.
Always good to see you.
Kevin, thank you so much for having us on, and I'm sure we will be able to help out as in any number of ways. I think there'll be another HMUN webinar we're doing in June for all the HMUN participants, in which I think we will cover things like opportunities for getting financial aid or scholarships, so merit scholarships for students. So if anybody who's particularly interested in studying in the US and want to see what are the ways that they can attend a US university without having to fork out $300,000, $400,000 over a period of 4 years, I think it'll be really wise for you guys to join that webinar as well.
It's always good to know when you can get college for free, always.
Yeah, thank you so much to both of you and Anusha as well, for doing this. This was a great session, a lot of questions that were answered. Thank you so much for that. I mean, and I completely agree with you guys. Model UN and what you discuss and debate at a Model UN doesn't have to be confined in those committee rooms or those sessions. It can go out and it can turn into an experience. I mean, we've been doing we started an initiative called Act to Impact, and the kids and all of you can check out these stories on our Instagram pages or Worldview or HMUN India. There we have students turning their their debates and their discussions at a Model UN into actions, where they go out and they do things to impact their local societies, and they talk about the stories. So we just thought, why not give them a platform? But I completely agree with you. That's really turning what they're speaking about for those 3 days into real actions, and that itself is a story that they can share with anyone, even if it's a college admission or just a story to share that they've done something and not just discussed at a Model UN.